My brother is being manipulated into marrying his girlfriend. Some background: we do not live in the USA, so there are different traditions and customs at play here. Basically, my brother and his now fiancée had been dating long distance for a couple of years, with multiple phone and video calls throughout the day every single day. And I know this because he lives with me, mooching roommate. There have been a few concerns I had about their relationship, the incessant phone calls being one of them. She has a tendency to call every 20 to 60 minutes, even while both of them are at work, and I always had the impression that she was keeping tabs on him, as I'd often happen to be in the room when he'd receive a call, and every conversation would essentially start with her asking where he was, what he was doing, and who he was with, despite again having asked him those same questions the last time she called, potentially all of 20 to 60 minutes ago. She and her family also hail from a part of the country that is considered dangerous for foreigners, which is relevant as my brother and I are of mixed heritage and look foreign, and some of her relatives have been openly hostile and/or disapproving of their relationship. Also, my brother almost never refers to her by her name, and I had no idea what it was until she actually came to visit us earlier this year. He almost always refers to her as his girlfriend, and as of the engagement, his fiancée. I also found it weird that he never thought to introduce her to me or to our mother prior to the visit. Given he decided to marry her, he could have easily set up a video call for us to have a chat long distance to get to know her a little bit. As it stands, we know almost nothing about her other than what we have observed or my brother has told us, and what we have unintentionally eavesdropped as she speaks very loudly on the phone. Neither her nor our family is particularly well off, which leads to the next issue. My brother proposed using a family ring. This was not out of tradition, but because he couldn't afford to buy an engagement ring and lacks both the patience and willpower to budget his expenses. During the proposal, they sat down to discuss some important details, mainly one, the fact that neither of them have a lot of money. Two, their respective families live in completely different parts of the country. My brother tried to compromise by suggesting a location that was more or less in the middle of our country, so that neither of our families would have to travel ridiculously far. She shot this down rather insistently, that it had to under no circumstances take place in or around her hometown, meaning none of my brother's family would be able to attend his big day, as it would essentially become a destination wedding none of us would be able to afford. He gave in to her demand, but was able to get her to reluctantly agree to at least opt for a small intimate ceremony of no more than 20 people in order to keep costs down so they could put more savings towards buying a house. Fast forward to months later and she's become increasingly pushy, demanding. While my brother isn't a prize by any means, she has started demanding huge quantities of money from him completely out of the blue for non-vital, non-emergency reasons, such as an alleged distant relative of hers refusing to get a job and her insisting on financing their lazy lifestyle. She has also decided to break her agreement about the small ceremony, and she now wants a big lavish wedding with a guest list of at least 100 of her family and friends only. Not a single friend or family member from my brother's side. Given the location, catering, etc. that she wants on top of that, the cost of the wedding is going to balloon to at least USD, which might not seem like much, but is a crazy amount in the local currency here. And she is demanding that my brother pays 70% of it, if not all of it. When he shot this down, arguing that he doesn't earn nearly enough to have that kind of money saved up for when she wants the wedding, she refuses to let him be involved in any of the planning, and that wasn't what they'd agreed on. She threw a tantrum and snapped that they might as well not get married at all and just go back to being boyfriend and girlfriend. But it feels like a tactic to force him into giving in to her demands yet again. Apparently this is normal behavior for her. She does not like to compromise and pretty much always must have things her way and her way only. My mother and I really have our doubts about whether my brother should still push through with the wedding. My instinct is to have him ask for the ring back, as we have concerns that if they do marry, she will force him to settle down in her part of the country and isolate him from his family and friends, where who knows what might happen to him. That being said, I'm not always the best at reading these types of situations. Are my instincts right, and are there several red flags that speak against this wedding marriage from happening, or have I misread the whole thing? Very minor update, not worthy of a separate post. Talking to my brother about the wedding, fiancé has been trickier than anticipated. My first attempt at conversation was shut down very quickly, as even asking very neutral questions like, how is the wedding planning going? And any mention of the fiancé, even neutral positive ones like how many family members and friends is she planning to invite, were initially met with a lot of hostility and aggression. The second attempt at conversation was slightly more fruitful. Maybe he was in a better mood, and I learned the following. His fiancée has allegedly agreed to back down somewhat, whittling her guest list down to 50, 40 guests will be her family and friends, and 10 spots are reserved for my brother to invite. My brother claims he is no longer expected to pay for it all, but I'm not entirely convinced, as he has a track record for dishonesty, but will likely need to cover travel and accommodation for any guest that he invites. When I asked him why she wouldn't budge on the location, he stated that any more middle ground locations would be too expensive, and that he and his fiancée agreed that once the wedding in her hometown was over, they would travel back to our part of the country and have a separate, smaller celebration with our friends and family. He also claims that she's backed down about them being joint ATMs for her family, but I wouldn't count on this lasting for long, and it will likely be a lifelong point of contention if the wedding does go ahead. Other information I learned is that she is handling most of the wedding planning, but allegedly asks for his input, that is colors, flowers, decor, etc. She also plans to ask the guests she invites to give cash only, as they are planning to settle down in our city. We'll see how that pans out, and paying to ship physical gifts like bulky appliances would be expensive as well as a hassle. I am still slightly skeptical, as she had also previously agreed to a small ceremony, but changed her mind about that very quickly, so who knows what else she might suddenly change her mind about? My brother seems confident it will all work out, but given where some of his other life choices have led him, I can't say I'm of the same opinion. I will update if there are any further developments before and/or after the wedding. Update. While I don't have a whole lot to add, there have been a few new developments that to me seem red flaggier than ever. After agreeing to a 50-guest wedding, less than a week went by before my brother's fiancée suddenly wanted a 100-plus guest wedding consisting of her entire living family tree. Allegedly, her siblings, who are not contributing anything financially, decided that, since the hotel can accommodate over 100 guests in total, she should invite over 100 guests, as many as the hotel can room. I don't know if this egging on by her family members is true, or if she's using her family as an excuse to get her way, but either scenario is not good. I flat out asked my brother if he really is sure about going through with this, considering his fiancée is constantly flip-flopping and changing her mind, and they can't seem to reach a compromise both of them are happy with. She always seems to agree with him one moment only to immediately change her mind moments later. Because if this is a preview of what married life is going to be like, I can see him losing his patience and temper very quickly. Additionally, my mother is retired but has some property that she rents out, which is her only means of income. My brother and his fiancée have expressed interest in moving into said property, or at least my brother has, and claims his fiancée is on board with the idea. But Mom and I are very against this, because when my brother mentioned his idea to me in private, I asked if he'd be willing to pay the rent, given he's never paid rent or made contributions to the household and continues to mooch off of me. And he seemed surprised and even offended. He expected to live there for free. I berated him for that, given it's our mom's only means of income, so he pissily countered, well, but she had better not expect me to pay much. I told our mom about this interaction, of course, and she is flat out against renting to my brother, as we can already foresee that he might pay a couple of months' worth of rent before his complete inability to budget will leave him incapable of doing so, and he will attempt to gaslight her, telling her she is an awful mother for expecting her son to pay her rent, etc. to get out of paying. Why is this relevant? Well, apparently his fiancée is so miserable at work she wants to stop working altogether after they get married. This is problematic because, and some of these points have been mentioned previously, she earns much more than my brother does, and his current salary and the many debts he still has to pay off is not enough to support the both of them and the children they're already planning to have. Heck, in this economy, at least 1/4 of his salary would go to rent, not including utilities, and that's if they rent cheap. Too, and despite knowing this, she still seems dead set on blowing all of her savings on a pointlessly lavish wedding, which would essentially shame my brother in the eyes of her relatives, as he wouldn't be able to contribute much if anything, and in her culture, it is expected that the groom pay for 100% of the wedding. 3. She also wants a fancy honeymoon somehow. 4. And after spending all of her money, she allegedly plans to become a stay-at-home wife with absolutely zero savings and no financial safety net of any kind. All of this is just maddening. I honestly wouldn't care all that much if there wasn't a very real danger of this whole fiasco negatively impacting me and my mother in some way, because I just know my brother will try to pull something if he does inevitably get screwed over. My mom and I have even suggested they rent a small place and try just living together for a while, because you can't really know a person until you've actually shared a living space with them for a prolonged period of time. But apparently that's a no-go, because his fiancée's family is extremely religious, and 2 unmarried people living together would be a sin. So, that's all I have for now, but I'll be sure to update if anything new comes up. As of now, it's all over the place. Update 2. The wedding is off. And in the end, I had nothing to do with it, and it was all the fiancé. This happened several days ago, but I wanted to wait as things still keep happening, so while I'm not planning another update after this, who knows? My brother finally grew a pair and put his foot down, when fiancé kept adding more and more to the wedding, jacking the costs up to the point that my brother would have been bullied into taking out a loan that would have put him into debt for years. Anyway, to no one's surprise, ex-fiancé is extremely materialistic. She insisted on a huge lavish destination wedding with a guest list in the hundreds consisting entirely of her family and friends, only that she initially said she would pay for herself, but then coerced my brother into agreeing to first pay partially, and then entirely. She would pay the bulk of it, and then he would pay her back the money during the course of their marriage or something. She also initially promised she would continue to work as she 1 earns more, and 2 would put them into debt with her extreme wedding, so they'd need the extra income just to be able to survive. But declared that she would stop working right after the wedding and told my brother, "Your money is going to be my money, not ours." She made it clear it would be hers. She'd also been needling my brother to take my inheritance, as in the house I currently live in that I'll be inheriting. My brother is set to inherit a different house, but she likes this house better. Following an argument about her making the wedding even more expensive than it already is and realizing that even with a loan they'd be setting themselves up for utter failure, my brother told her no. And apparently she doesn't like to be told that. According to my brother, she would always say something to the effect of, "Well, let's just break up then," or, "Well, let's just call it the wedding," whenever she couldn't get her way, and up until this point, my brother would always cave and give in to her demands. So imagine Ms. ex-fiance's surprise when my brother agreed with her and told her, "Okay, let's cancel the wedding. I think we need to put any thoughts of marriage aside until we know for sure where this relationship is going." She proceeded to block him on everything, for minutes. Then she unblocked him to call and berate him for not calling her to beg for forgiveness, after she blocked him, and he had no way to call her even if he wanted to. Initially, my brother was willing to give her another chance, but has completely ended the relationship after several days of missed calls, messages on all possible social media platforms alternating between apologies, love bombing, and vile insults, begging him to reconsider and take her back, to telling him he was never good enough for her, how her family never liked him anyway, blah, blah, blah. She even sent a frickin' cake to our house with non-apology and icing on top. She tried calling my mom, who didn't answer, and told her in a message that, "I don't know why you won't talk to me, I haven't done anything wrong." My mom only responded to tell her that she saw all of the messages she sent and ignored her after that. This triggered Miss ex-fiance to go on a tirade on yet another platform. My brother keeps blocking her, but she finds other social media platforms to reach him on, or uses alt accounts to harass him. How dare he show her messages to his mother, that it's a violation of her privacy and that kind of BS. She's still messaging him from what I know, and he's continuing to block her. And while I'm really glad she's no longer going to be my sil, I am concerned that she knows where we live, and I wouldn't put it past her to try something crazy. So I'm looking into getting some cameras installed. In her most recent ramblings, she was demanding that he should have paid her family a dowry. We don't even have dowries in our culture, and if it's going by some of her family's religion, if anyone were to pay a dowry, it would be her. I doubt I'll update again, but if she does tries anything crazy weird, I just might. My brother is taking it all remarkably well. He doesn't seem particularly bothered. In fact, he seems more cheerful, if somewhat annoyed by the constant messages he keeps receiving. Heck, he's making plans for trips with his guy friends and has been talking to me more. So I honestly don't even think his feelings for her were ever that serious to begin with. Minor edit. Ex-fiance said she'd give the ring to a CO worker planning to travel to our city in the near future, but we'll see if that happens. I didn't take pictures of the cake, because I was and am so over the whole thing. I sure as heck wasn't going to commit that to memory along with the pictures of my cats and dogs. It said something along the lines of, "Sorry love, let's make up." And the thing is, she didn't even spring for any of the good bakeries. She got one from the budget bakery. And yes, I am still wary of my brother and his questionable behavior, but my mom and I have been taking steps, and that's all I'll say.